thing broke out, what do you think the Russians expected Ukraine to just give up?
Absolutely. That's what happened in 2014 for the most part.
And what are the possible scenarios for Russia? I mean, if it seems like they're completely committed to this.
They are.
And if they don't win it?
The Russian position is that our demographic structure is in such diseased and aged and terminal decline that the Russian state will be turning the lights off sometimes between 2050 and 2070 anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah. They've had a series of big melon scoops out of their birth rate throughout the history. World War I, World War II, the collectivizations under Stalin, Brezhnev's mismanagement, Khrushchev's mismanagement, the post-Cold War collapse. And a lot of these stack on top of each other. And the biggest one stacked on top of the post-Cold War collapse. So there are more Russians in their 50s than their 40s and their 30s and their 20s and teens. And then they lie about the data of the teenagers on down. Which means that there aren't enough Russians that have been born in the last 30 years to carry the ethnicity forward much farther. And so they're thinking if they can forward position their military and plug those gaps now with their last generation of young people, then they can kind of die on their own terms 50 years from now.
Have they really thought about this in that term?
Yeah. This one way or another, this is the end of Russia. The question is whether it dies in the long term on their terms or in the shorter term when they're completely unmoored. Because if they fail to secure those borders, then they've got a 2,000-mile open border with countries they consider to be hostile, and they have no way of moving troops around in a way that would allow them to defend it. They'd just be waiting for somebody to come over and knock them over.
And you believe that they're aware of this, that they can't survive past 2050, 2070, right, whatever it is?
I think that's what's been driving them, because 2022 was the last year where they had a sufficient number of people in their 20s to even attempt this. So from my point of view, not only did the war always have to happen, it always had to happen by now.
Jesus. Now, is this just because of the nature of a dictatorship that's run by someone like Putin, that it's just completely mismanaged because he's just dominated the power structure and made sure that everybody falls in line with his ideology and his reign? Like, what caused all this to be so poorly managed?
Well, Russia has always been poorly managed and authoritarian, but under Putin it's taken a much darker turn because of the nature of the end of the Cold War. If you remember back to 1982, there was a coup in the Soviet Union. And Chernomyrdin and Andropov and Gorbachev were FSB, well, then KGB agents who basically overthrew the old system of Brezhnev and took over and because they were the only ones who really had a full understanding of what was going on. They controlled the information. They were not able to save the system, and so it broke. And Putin is the successor to that legacy because he was also in the KGB. And we're now in an environment that between the terminal demographic structure of the Soviet/Russian system and Putin's personal paranoia, so he's gone through and purged what was left of the KGB, FSB, of anyone who has personal ambitions to succeed him. We're left with an entire political elite of only about 130 people. And Putin has removed anyone who has leadership ambitions.
Oh, geez.
Now, they all see the world the same way. They all kind of agree with Putin on what's at stake here. But it does mean that when this generation is gone, this is it. This is all the leadership talent that the country has.
So because of his sort of top-down approach, he's eliminated all the possibility of future leaders in some way.
Even if Russia did have a replacement generation coming up, and it doesn't, he's taken steps to make sure that they can't challenge him. And so any sort of leadership talent has left or been killed.
What did they hope happens? And when everything's going so poorly, like, what do we know about how they're assessing things?
Well, they're obviously not thrilled with the way the things are. They're using one bit of propaganda after another to justify it, saying that, we're fighting all of NATO, or demons are involved. That was my personal favorite.
Demons?
Oh, yeah. When it came to the Kherson offensive and it became clear that there was more going on than just NATO weapons, the Ukrainians actually knew what they were doing. They changed the line from that these are all Nazis to these are actually gay demons.
Gay?
Gay demons, yes.
What?
Yeah, Russian propaganda is a hoot.
Please explain the gay demons.
Oh, I don't know if I can explain it. I'm just saying that this is the official line right now, is that we have
But how do they-
homosexual demons fighting us in Ukraine.
But why gay demons? Like, is there a mythology to that?
Not really. The guy who's in charge of the Orthodox Church is a Putin crony. Kirill is his name. He's kind of like the Eastern Orthodox Pope, if you will. And he has been a partner with organized crime and with Putin since the beginning. And so he is coming up with ever more creative approaches to the propaganda. And so this is a way of, how can I say this without pissing off half of the people listening? Imagine Trump using his influence with evangelical Christians to come up with a theological reason why something didn't go his way. It's kind of the equivalent of that. And so gay demons is what he came up with.
Gay demons.
Yes, and they ran with it. So that's on state propaganda now.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
wild.
And what's the epicenter of the gay demons?
Oh, Kiev, obviously.
Kiev.
Yeah, so we've got a Jewish Nazi gay demon.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Truth is always weirder than fiction.
the scary rumor is that Putin has cancer, and that
Or Parkinson's is one I've heard as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. He's clearly on steroids, but that could mean a whole lot of things.
Like prednisone or something along
Yeah.
those lines. And you say that because of his appearance?
Yeah,
Like-
he looks very not just flushed but puffy.
Yeah.
and that's kind of a classic too many steroids in your system issue.
And this puffiness is these steroids are to battle this cancer somehow?
In theory, steroids keep you going in a time when you should probably be laying down is really the kind of the bottom line. Whether he's medicated, over-medicated, or medicated because of medical reasons, we really don't know. He's not in great health. That is obvious. And for someone who has been the shirtless horseback rider in the propaganda videos, that's a real problem. He's visibly wearing bulletproof or bullet-resistant vests even around his own propaganda people. There was this great piece that came out that I saw last week where it was all the propaganda shots that he's taken with the soldiers' mothers and on the front and with the tech people and in the intelligence. And it was like the same 12 people were in every single shot, just in different outfits. And even with those people, he's wearing his ballistic vest.